My name is Honorable Kipruto Kimosop, MCA Mochongoi Ward, and also the representative of North Rift in the County Assembly's forum. I have called you today to make my comments on national developments in the recent past, and basically to urge the president of this country to actually stand up and over leadership, because as things stand, the country is headed towards a crisis, and in moments like this, it is expected that the president of the country stands up above party, above tribe, above pettiness, to over leadership. In the recent past, there has been developments. The immediate one is the advisory that Justice Maraka gave, that because Parliament has failed to enact the legislation to ensure that not more than 2/3 are one gender in our institutions across the country, and specifically Parliament, which in this case is National Assembly and Senate. That as a result of that, and pursuant to a petition that was made, Parliament should be dissolved. The Constitution requires that, and that clause is clear, that when that advisory is given, the President shall dissolve Parliament. That is one development that came out this week, of many other developments that have happened. This is one of those occasions that as a country, we ask ourselves, where are we? Where is the country then going? Are we dissolving Parliament or not? There are those voices that say there's no timeline of when the president should dissolve Parliament. There are those that say after 21 days, the president should actually dissolve Parliament. We have seen that Parliamentary Service Commission is now planning to go to court, actually to challenge an advisory of the Supreme Court of the land in an high court. We have seen all these protestations. This is a defining moment for the country. And these are one of those moments that the country stares at a possible crisis. And it is at those moments that the president of the country, elected by the people of Kenya and sworn in and given the sword, needs to rise up and over leadership. And the reason why we are in that conundrum now is because the president has not been very keen to over leadership in respect to this matter or to many other matters that we have raised. And that is how we end up all the time addressing the president and urging the president that as the apex of leadership in this country, there are things that only fall within the purview of the president. One other item, for example, is the recent stalemate in the Senate, where counties across the country were brought to a standstill. No salary, demonstrations everywhere, protests everywhere, and for about 10 times, Senate could not agree on the revenue sharing formula. It only took the president one sitting, one morning, and in the afternoon, the country had a direction. That is the leadership we are talking about. That there are those things that fall with squarely in the purview, in the jurisdiction, in the office of the President of the Republic of Kenya. Recently, we have seen members of parliament directly address their president. We saw, for example, Ngongeno. We saw, for example, Sudi and other members of parliament who have come out openly to address the president to have himself over leadership. What are we doing instead? When one or two people courageously address the president, we choose, for example, to engage in sideshows. That, you know, because you are speaking to the president this much, you get arrested in a dramatic way. You know, I looked at the dramatic manner in which Sudi was subjected to all this. You send forces to his house at night, you know, make a crisis out of it, have Sudi eventually hand over himself, come to the court, appear like you do not have time, you still need a lot of time to do investigations, and then another judgment comes from a high court rubbishing the decision of the lower court, releasing Sudi. I mean, all this drama, all these sideshows, only because Sudi and Ngongeno asked the president to over leadership. It is not necessary. And when people address their president, they are addressing their president. We can't address Magufuli, we can't address Museveni, we can't address any other person, we can't address Donald Trump. We are addressing our president, Uhuru Moikai Kenyatta. That is our president. And we have a right every time as leaders, as citizens, as the public, to actually address our president on any matter. And this one of Maraca is one of those occasions, again, that we ask the president of this country to over leadership. We will not have gotten into this situation, for example, Jubilee as majority in the National Assembly and in Senate. If parliamentary group meetings, which are traditionally chaired by the party leader and majority being Jubilee, had actually over the legislative agenda properly, we will not be in this quagmire. So I have convened this meeting to say that the president needs to over leadership. We are demanding that he overs leadership, and the direction the country is going is pathetic. With this kind of advice, it puts us in a very bad way, even internationally. Because we are going to have a parliament which lacks legitimacy in the eyes of the international community, in the eyes of the United Nations. And we can't exist alone. The way to rate countries in all the peer review mechanisms, the way to rate countries is one of them, the manner in which their institutions respect the constitutional order. And forever now, we are going to have a situation where our parliament has been condemned by the Supreme Court of the country. We will not have gotten to this. But because we have gotten to this, all these debates, I saw yesterday we had a very heated debate in the National Assembly. Now they are moving to the High Court to challenge the decision of the Supreme Court. That is confusion. I mean, generally, that's confusion. You cannot, for example, have High Court overturn the decision of the Supreme Court. So it is on those occasions that a leadership direction is required. Leadership that brings everybody on board. Leadership that acknowledges. So that if we want to agree as a country that the Constitution has a challenge, that the Constitution has an ambiguity, that you see one part of the Constitution is talking about this and the other part of the Constitution is talking about this. One part of the Constitution, for example, is talking about Parliament enacting the gender rule within this particular time. But the same part of the Constitution talks about an election happening after every 5 years. And it creates an environment that whenever there's an election, the date is clarified, the time is clarified, and it talks about an election for all the 5 positions. So if there's an ambiguity then in all these clauses, then we need to agree as a country how we want to proceed. Do we amend the Constitution? Do we go for the referendum as we have been saying? And we have been saying this with a lot of chest stamping and with a lot of bravado, instead of offering it as a form of leadership. Basically, that is what we are saying. That on times and moments like this, the country needs leadership. And we will continue addressing the president of this country. As long as we are citizens of this country, we are leaders in this country, we will continue addressing the president. And those who are misleading the president that when we address him to over leadership on weighty matters, you will intimidate people, you will blackmail people, you will arrest people, then you are in for a long ride. Because we have no option. The president has no option but to over leadership. Even us, we are being addressed at our positions to over leadership. And if at some point anyone feels, or the president himself feels, that he doesn't want to be addressed, he doesn't want to be challenged, he doesn't want people to engage him, then all he needs to do is to resign, pack, and go home. The moment Uhuru Kenyatta does that, we will no longer address him, and we will no longer be bothered. The country will think of getting themselves a president. But as long as he remains our president, we will not watch this country go the Somali way, go the Rwanda way previously, and go other country banana republics that we saw. We will continue addressing the president to over leadership. And that is the position. And those who mislead the country, who misuse government resources, who misuse government security system, I think it's just laughable that in 2020, one still thinks that you can use police, you can use police cells, you can use jail, you can use prison to silence anybody, to intimidate anybody. In 2020, when history has taught us that Mandela came out of prison to become a president. When history has taught us, for example, that Jomo Kenyatta came out of prison to become a president. When history has taught us that despite ICC, Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto still went ahead to become president and deputy. What makes you think that there would be anything different by threatening anybody with an arrest? Even with an assassination, even with martyrdom, we still know that Martin Luther King Jr., for example, still speaks to the social revolution movement all over the world from his grave. All those that were assassinated in this country, like J.M. Kariuki, Pio Kamapinto, and others, are still speaking today to the revolutionary movement from their grave. So what I can tell these pretenders and masqueraders is that let the president of this country over leadership, and we will continue addressing him to over leadership. This is not the time. Kenyan country has matured enough. Our democracy is up enough. Our constitution is progressive enough. This is not the time to threaten, intimidate, blackmail anybody using the police cells or prisons or any other of such accounts. And if anyone thinks that you will use the prisons and police and other intimidation gimmicks to silence people, then you have so many clients, including me. There would be many clients willing to be part of that. But all we are saying is the president needs to over leadership. Thank you.